Paul,
Yeah,
what do you do for a living?
I'm a general contractor.
What does that do?
I remodel houses and build houses.
Okay. Where at? Which city, which state?
My heart is in Spartanburg, South Carolina.
Why Spartanburg?
I moved here from the Northwest, from Portland, Oregon, Vancouver, Washington area. And I saw all the statistics and everything showing that this is one of the fastest growing cities, the fastest growing counties in the U.S. We're like top 5, top 10, and everything, growth in housing, growth in building, and number of permits pulled. And Spartanburg is really cheap. A lot of people don't want to get into it because they don't like that it's ghetto in a lot of areas. And I like that because then I have less competition. There's a lot more people in Greenville pushing that way. Prices there are pretty high. Spartanburg's more affordable to get into. I would say a little less competition, but the growth is unreal. So I'm here, and it's my town. So
When did you come here?
When?
Yeah, when did you move to Spartanburg?
2020, right at the end. COVID.
What brought you to Spartanburg, though?
Oh boy, how many reasons do you need?
Give me 2.
2. Weather, number 1.
And you moved out of
Portland, Oregon.
Oregon.
It rains and
The
rains.
most depressing
and rains.
city in the world.
Yeah, it is. It's one of the top. It's in the top 10, I believe. Suicide rates and everything, and a lot of it is related to weather. It's gray, it's gloomy, it's dreary. It rains like 70-80% of the year. Cold rain.
Mm-hmm. And second reason you moved here?
A better life for my family. So my kids, got 3 kids. I wanted them to have a better chance of success in their personal lives, financially, schools, school choice, just the kind of people you're around. So it's more conservative here. It's more laid back. People kind of leave you alone. Nobody's like in your face. I moved in 2020. So if you remember, a lot of people forgot what COVID was like, but it was nasty.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't go to the store without getting yelled at, where's your mask? There was this pressure.
That's in Oregon or in South Carolina?
Portland. No, and so in Portland, it was like going to the store, like you have to mentally prepare yourself to like get attacked, you know? And I was like refusing to wear masks. I'm like, there's no science behind it. I have siblings that are in the medical industry and just, I'm not a medical professional, but just seeing all the stuff that people were talking about, oh, you have to do this. And it was like, I'm in construction. I know that to remove lead paint, or I was a welder. Like I had a welding mask that you had to wear, and it would filter certain particulates, but it was not a medical mask. And then they're like telling you to slap on a cloth on your face and it's going to stop COVID-19 apparently. And I was a rebel, so I refused to wear it.
So you like the freedom of South Carolina?
Yeah, we came here and it was like nobody was in your face. Nobody cared. Nobody talked to you about it. Like if you don't want to, you don't have to. So I think clear into like 2021, 22, like we'd go back to Portland, we'd come here, and it was like way more like relaxed. I'd go back to Portland, it's like masks, vaccines. There was this like constant thing of like, I was a contractor, so to come into people's houses to remodel for them, and you're like, take a deep breath and like come in and you're like, well, like it's a job, so you have to be professional. So you're like putting on the mask, like asking all these questions, keep your 6-foot distance. And then there's always like, you could never talk about politics ever because it would get really brutal.
That's in Oregon.
Yep. Portland, Oregon. Spartanburg, South Carolina.
What changed in Spartanburg?
What changed?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
When you moved here, what's the biggest thing you saw?
My life changed a lot.
In which way?
Positive way. My business blew up. My family's happier. We travel way more because it's really affordable here. So like what we paid for over there for housing, gas, insurances, property tax, you know, you get, I would say 50% you pay for that. And so it leaves you with a lot more money for fun. Go down to Florida, drive up to DC. We're traveling all the time.
And how long have you been doing, let's say, back to our topic, how long have you been doing business before we go to get too detailed?
I opened my company in 2016.
2016.
Yeah.
You've been, that's the only thing you've been doing as a business?
Yeah. Well, I started as a tile and flooring guy. That's how I got in.
And then you jumped into contracting?
Just kind of, yeah. I used to do siding, roofing, windows, and then I mixed that with my brother's knowledge of flooring. Then we did kitchens and so on, and just started. My brother-in-law got me into house building. He actually kind of forced me into it. And it was
your brother or your brother-in-law?
my brother-in-law.
What's his name?
Andre.
Shout out to Andre.
Shout out.
Shout out to Andre.
Yeah, he pushed me. He was like, you'd be a fool not to get in on building. And I was so scared. I remember he's like, you need 35 grand down. And there's this piece of land and it's all already set up. There's the plans, the permits, everything's ready. Just build on it. And I was like, where am I going to get 35,000? I was so scared. So I put a sign before God, my wife and I, and we posted her car up for sale. We're like, if it sells, we'll use that money as a down payment. Long story short, it happened. Build my first house.
So you kind of got it handed to you.
All straight up, like on a silver platter.
Must be nice.
It is nice. I'll never forget it.
Some people have to beat their way into the door, you know?
Well, that's like, I was so resistant because I was so scared because to me it was like 35,000. Like that was astronomical money for me.
That was your only thing that you had to do.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I had to build a house, you know, but like the lot was ready. The permits were ready. The plans were ready. The subcontractors were lined up, like, and plus like my brother's in construction, my brother-in-law, my other brother, like everybody's in it. So it's like, you just call around and be like, who's your flooring guy? Who's your framer? It was easy, but I think it was the mental thing that you had to like cross over where you're like, you
Just
borrow
start.
money, you invest. And then there was this fear of like, what if the house doesn't sell? Like, where's the market? So this is like 2019. Where's the market going to be at? You know,
Is that when you started building your first home?
Yeah. 2019, I believe.
Right
yeah.
before you moved here?
Yep.
Okay.
And then right as I sold in February and in March, COVID started.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and there's a lot.
How many homes have you done already so far?
Oh, I don't know. A lot.
A lot?
Well, I don't know what a lot is, but single family homes. Well, there's a mix of like new builds. New builds I've only done like, I don't know, like 7 or 8, but I've done a lot of like rebuilds, which is like not a remodel, not a new build. It's like we just leave the foundation and build the rest of it. I did like 12 in my first year here. I don't know, a 20 plus that, maybe 30 in total, rebuilds versus new builds.
In the past couple of years, yeah?
Since 2019.
So that's 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, 5 years.
Not too bad, bro. Let's go to Alex for now. Alex, talk about yourself. What business are you in? I know you're in multiple businesses.
Yeah, but most of it is the same industry as Paul, new construction builds.
He's my competition.
Yeah, so we started but I'm more in Greenville. I'm going after the different market than Paul.
Mm-hmm. He's Spartanburg. He's diehard Spartanburg.
Yeah, he has a heart for Spartanburg. So
I do.
we need to give him some space.
Thank you. I'll give you your space.
But no, yeah, we're towards Greenville. We build homes. We started about...
Who's we? Your name.
So me, Sergey, Tsushko, and Dimitri Pepenko, we're partners.
Okay. What's your company name?
Green City.
Green City Homes.
Yeah. And so we started about 4 years ago.
Why did you guys start?
So to go back a little bit, when I moved here to South Carolina, we came here for a ministry, and I started a business doing siding.
Okay, let's stop right there really quick, because this is going towards where I want to lead this conversation. You said we wanted to go into ministry, but you got into siding.
So
explain that right there. Dive a little bit deeper.
So more deeper is that
what kind of ministry did you want to do, or?
So when I moved here,
from where?
From Washington.
Okay.
From Seattle, pretty much same place where Paul moved from. Depression, and just nasty
Depression
weather.
state.
Yeah. So I moved here 9 years ago, and my desire was to help people that were broken.
Okay. How come?
Because I went through a life in my certain things in my life where I went.
You can go into detail. We're going deep.
Yeah.
This is our first podcast. Come on.
Yeah. So me personally, I went through addiction of drugs.
Okay.
And when I got saved, I understood that this is something what God was calling me to do, is to help people that are broken, people that there's no hope, and just to be that person that you can talk to them, spend time with them. So when I moved here to South Carolina, a lot of churches that I went to, they're more religious churches. So when I said that my past, that was using drugs and stuff like that, nobody wanted to do anything with me. Nobody wanted to give me anything to do at the church. So I got a little bit discouraged, but then a moment came, probably like 2 years down the road.
When you were in South Carolina, or
Yeah.
what? Okay.
2 years down the road, then I get a phone call that there was a ministry that was opening, and that's when I went to a rehab center. It was the same God Will Provide ministry, so they were opening a location in Anderson.
Shout out to God Will Provide.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that went through a rehab center there that got saved as successful businessmen,
Oh yeah,
and
probably
just
some of the more successful ones.
the Andre guy that he was talking about that helped him to push. He went through the same.
He went through God Will
My
Provide.
brother-in-law, yeah,
He went through it too.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
went through the same program.
Oh wow.
they know each
So
other.
I actually know him really good.
Oh wow.
They probably did business before that too,
Some side hustle business
in the past life.
in the past life. It's okay.
But yeah, then
Sorry, Andre.
But then God opened the door for me to step into a ministry to establish a rehab center in Anderson, South Carolina.
With God Will Provide.
With God Will Provide.
Okay.
So it was a blessing time. And then with that, because I was married, so I needed to provide for my family as well, because as a husband, as a man, I have to provide for my house. So I was working, making $400 a week for this company.
$400 a week.
Yeah.
This is what year is this?
16?
2016.
Yeah. And then I remember I was driving to Nashville and I was like, God, I'm tired. I can't support my family. I'm doing a lot of ministry. I want to establish a business, and God put on my heart to open up a siding company, modern siding. So we started it. So it was on.
Why siding? Sorry.
It's something that I knew what to do from before.
Okay.
I used to do siding. So
Same.
You did too?
That's how we got into construction in the Northwest.
I actually
like
did it
siding.
once. I think I did siding once or twice. Hardy. Hated it
Yep.
so bad.
I mean, I liked it.
You liked it?
Yeah, I liked it.
I hate remodeling. I hated all that stuff. I did it too for about 2 years. Keep going, sorry.
No, you're good. So what's it called?
You established a siding company.
Yeah, we established a siding company. It was interesting. It was on Friday when God spoke to me. Yes, go ahead and establish something. So Saturday.
So, okay, sorry, really quick. You said God spoke to you. I'm just going to attack you right there. How did God speak to you? Like, was it like an audible voice in your dream or like a intuition? Like some people don't understand that. A lot of people say God spoke to me, God spoke to me. How did God speak to you directly? Was there doors that were opening?
No, so there's 2 times that I actually heard God's voice
Okay.
in my life. When
Like physically?
physically, when I was in Mexico, I remember it was 12:30 at night. I was reading the Bible,
Okay.
and the Lord spoke to me, go to South Carolina, I have a plan for you there.
Wow.
And that's it. I have no family here, nobody, just my wife's side.
Mm-hmm.
So
And this was before you met your wife?
yeah, I was already talking to my wife.
Okay.
But we were supposed to go to California because that's when I went through a rehab center.
Mm-hmm.
So the ministry was established there and everything. So I was going to go to California when we got married
Oh, wow.
because I didn't want to live in this village area.
South Carolina
in
village?
South Carolina, yeah.
It is a big village.
So yeah, and then the same thing while I was driving, and this was differently because I was driving from Asheville, and I think I was more just because I knew as a man I have to provide for my family,
Mm-hmm.
and I was praying, and I felt it like inside of my spirit, like yes, it is time
It is time to start a business.
Yeah.
It is time to start working.
to start a business.
So it's like an intuition.
Yeah,
It's like, is it like a strong feeling? Is it like a
You
word?
can say it's more of thoughts that came to your mind, but you know that it's from God.
Okay.
So it was Friday night. I was driving back from Asheville. On Saturday, I went about all the tools. On Monday, I started my first project.
Wait, hold on. This is siding.
This was exciting.
Friday, you have a intuition feeling.
Yes.
You need to start a business.
Yes.
Okay, how did you get a job by Monday?
I reached out to a guy that owned a siding company.
Okay.
So he gave me a first job. I worked
Okay.
for him. I did 3 houses or 4 houses for him.
Hey, can I stop you right there really quick? So to people who are listening, when you start a company, what's your first step you did? You went to somebody who's already doing what you
Yeah.
wanted to do.
Yeah.
And you asked them for kind of like a handout. Hey, help me out.
Yeah. If you got any jobs that you can give it to me so I can do it.
Okay.
And you can make some kind of profit.
You didn't go to door knocking on people's doors. You went to somebody you knew personally.
Yeah, personally, I knew that. So yeah, and then so I did 3 or 4 jobs for him, and then God just opened the doors. From that day, I've never had a day that I never had a job.
Wow.
Just like every single day, I had more and more and more. And so then, after a few years, we opened in 2016. We started the siding company,
What's the name of the siding company?
Modern Siding.
Modern Siding. If anybody needs siding work,
Yeah, come on, we're still doing it.
we're still doing it.
So, and then I was in the ministry. So I was doing pretty much.
What were you doing in ministry?
I was a director of a rehab center.
Okay.
And I was helping out.
What's a rehab center? Explain to people.
So rehab center is a place where people come in that are going through addictions, any kind of addiction, whatever it is. And it is a place for people to take them away from this world, from their friends, from people around them, and just we had a house where we hold up to 6 people. So they would come in there, they would go through withdrawals, we'll be there with them.
Where would these people come from? Like from the local state or from out of state?
We tried to not take anybody from a local state, from South Carolina. The reason why is as soon as the withdrawals come, they know the area, they know the place. So
they know who to run back to.
Yeah, so they just walk home, whatever it is. We did took some people from South Carolina, but most of the people were from different states.
Is this something people had to pay for?
Our facility was free.
Wow. So who funded this place? Or what funded this place?
So most of the times it was people from the church.
Was it businessmen, just regular people?
Yeah, people that have a vision, that have a heart for broken. And they're see, when you see people getting changed, you want to invest into it. So when we start seeing people getting transformed and change, so a lot of guys came in and start investing into the ministry. And a lot of times we would ask with the guys, we'll go, let's just say Paul. I know Paul even helped out a few times when he had demolition or something like that. He would reach out and we'll send the guys over there. And they'll work for a couple days and he'll pay it for them.
We do like a donation to the center. So the guys would work and we'd give a donation to the center so that they'd have funding.
That's why I'm kind of asking these questions. These centers were funded not by just regular people, but by businessmen. Yeah.
So a lot of places they ask each person to pay $300 to $400 a month. I truly think that's nothing. But sadly to say, a lot of parents did not want to pay that. So it would come out of the church or the people are in the church that are involved.
Oh, wow. Parents, they didn't want to pay for their kids to get free
they just
from
wanted
addiction.
to make sure they're in a safe place and they're good. That's it.
Wow. So you went through one of those places.
Yeah.
How long were you there? Let's go deep. Let's go. We got time, right?
So
how many times did you go?
Yeah, that's the question. I was going to
That's a
say.
big question.
So I went to rehab 3 times.
How long were these times for?
So my first time I actually did all 6 months.
Oh, wow.
Then I relapsed. Then I went again. I did around 3 months. Then I got out. I was clean for about a year. Well, clean from drugs, but I was still drinking and smoking. But then I got back into it. And then the third time, I did around 3 months as well.
3 months as well. How long was your addiction period in your life? Let's go a little deeper.
Probably I started when I was 17.
What'd you start with?
With Oxy pills.
Oxycontin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Who gave you that? Who gave you those?
I'm not gonna say a name, but I had somebody that it was really interesting.
Family member.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So he gave me a try. It was so weird. Like I tried it one time. I felt so sick. I was puking. it was so nasty. Then when I woke up next day, the only thing in my mind was, where do I get this thing?
No way.
Like this. And from that moment.
So you were hooked from the first.
From the first time. I thought I was going to die the first time. I was puking so bad.
So from a heroin addict, right, going to a businessman, successful businessman, tell me what moved in your heart and how God directed you to connect ministry and business together.
So I think the biggest thing was...
Or what doors did he open for you?
So when I had with the signing company, so we were sponsoring a lot of missionary work. And
What kind of missionary work? Sorry.
So just we went to Honduras many times.
Okay.
We did crusades there. Other projects locally, rehab center and other things.
Okay. Keep going.
So and we saw that we're wasting a lot, not wasting, but investing a lot of money. And we didn't have that much money coming in. So me and a couple guys, we got together, me, Sergey, and Dimitri, and we're like, what can we do something that we can reach more people?
Okay.
So that's when we prayed about it and God opened the doors for us to start building. Building houses. So
Building houses.
yeah,
Whose idea was it? Yours, Serge's, Dima's?
I think it was mine because I was in construction.
Serge, Dima, you listening to that?
Yeah.
Alex took all the credit just now.
So, but the other thing is, I always had a dream to build homes.
You had a dream.
Yeah,
Wow.
I always wanted to build.
I want to be an
houses.
astronaut.
Didn't happen. Huh?
Not yet.
It's not too late.
Elon Musk is building it. You know,
Yeah, when he
I'm
gets
working on his
stuff, he's
Tesla, so maybe. Give me a second.
find a ticket
Maybe I'll
to
get
go to
in.
Mars.
Maybe I'll get in there somehow.
Yeah, and so we started building houses, and just God just started opening the doors for that business aside of building houses.
When did you open that business up?
3.5 years ago.
Okay.
So I had my brother that lives in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
We reached out to him and said, "Hey, there's a big opportunity here in South Carolina." So they came in as an investor at first. We built a few houses together,
Mm-hmm.
and then they came in and like, "Hey, why don't we just partner up and establish a company here in South Carolina, Green City?" So when they came in, and God just started opening the doors for us to build houses, and God's been faithful. He's been blessing us. So the biggest thing was, the reason why we opened it was to bless people's lives.
You open up the building company to bless people's lives?
That's
How
our
are you
main
blessing
subject.
people's lives? Tell us a
So
little
I look
bit
a little
more
bit
in
on
detail.
business a little bit different than a lot of people do.
You're one of the reasons I started doing overseas missions, because I'm just going to be honest right here. I saw your heart and your passion. You have I'm just going to say this in the camera, right? You have one business, Modern Siding, that provides solely for missions, right?
Yeah, pretty much everything, yeah.
I've never heard of people opening businesses that run ministry. Keep going. Share a little detail why you do that.
Because, so I realized that business, it can be a ministry as well.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by that is we can reach more people through business than we can reach people inside the church.
Explain that. Elaborate on that a little bit.
So let's just say we're building a house. We have roughly 30 to 40 guys that are actually working on the house.
Okay.
So, and those, most of the people that do not go to church.
Mm-hmm.
So now through business, through the way you treat them, the way just you talk to them or whatever it is you do to them,
Mm-hmm.
they need to see God in everything that you do.
Okay.
So what I saw a big thing is that a business can actually impact more people than we can do in the church.
So business is not only about making money.
Yeah, it's not. I personally don't think this is just about the money. I know a lot of people,
That's all they see.
They see is money, cash. For me personally, is when I got saved, my heart is to reach as much people I can.
Can I pause you really quick? Can I bounce to Paul or something? I remembered a miracle you had when you prayed over a guy. Remember?
Yeah.
Something that kind of upset you later on, but like while it happened, it was. Can you share your testimony? What happened?
Yeah. Well, like Alex said, our business is a ministry, and God called me to be an evangelist when I was probably like 13 years old. I remember this family came to our church from Bolivia. It was a big Slavic family, and they were sharing how they're living full time in Bolivia. And I remember that service still to this day. I was weeping, I was crying, and I was like, that's the life I want. I want to be a missionary. I want to devote my life to God. I don't want to live here in America, whatever, in America, I guess. Privileged, spoiled, you can say. And that touched me. And then as life went on, I was like 13. So then at like 16, I think 17, I went on first mission trips to Mexico. And then every year, every time, like I would ask God, like, okay, God, what's the next step? What's the next step? Like, where do I go? I kept thinking of like Africa, like true missions, like going out there with unreached tribes. And every time God would kind of speak to me through different people, different churches, different prophets, personal revelation, it became more of like, you're not the kind of evangelist that's going to reach people on a stage with thousands. It's more of like one-on-one. Mm-hmm. And if you know me, I'm a very one-on-one talkative person. I can talk for hours.
You talk a lot.
And so when I'm like passionate, and I used to be like ashamed of like Christianity and God, I didn't hold a strong position. But then God did a lot of work in my life. I have my own testimony, how God saved me, what he did to me. And I started realizing like I'm a contractor. People hire me to come into their house and do work, their bathroom, their kitchen. And a lot of times you're dealing a lot in their personal home for like a week, 2, sometimes months, and they ask you questions. And I started to be really bold, and I started to share my story, my testimony, what God did in my life. And you kind of feel people out. Some people are closed off, hi, bye, that's it. Some people like go deep, I had that one specific moment that you said. I started speaking to one of my framers. He was a Hispanic guy, and he was kind of struggling with some things in his life. And he started to open up to me, and so I started to share with them about what God's done to me and how He's changed my life. And so,
what was he battling first?
So he was raised like Christian, like Catholic, and he was like always struggling with the fact that like, am I saved or not? Well, I drink and I smoke. Does that mean I'm not saved? It's kind of like the question of salvation or like righteousness. And so I'd like to share with him, I'm like, well, we're not saved by works, we're saved by grace, but, when we're transformed, the works kind of follow. So if you claim to be a Christian, there should be evidence of that in your life, but you start a pattern of, seeking God, loving God, and having Him transform you instead of, let me clean up my act first, let me stop smoking, let me stop drinking, let me stop this, and then come to God. No, come to God as you are, and He will filter those things out for you. And one day he didn't show up to work for a few days, and I'm like, what's going on? So I reach out to him. He comes, and he barely spoke English. I speak some broken Spanish, but his wife came with him, and she translates to me. She's like, he's got cancer. He has lung cancer. I'm like, are you sure? Like maybe, because that was right after COVID. And I know a lot of people that had COVID, their like lungs were scarred. I'm like, what if his lungs are scarred, or like something? Are you sure? Because he was young. He was like 26. And he had a kid on the way. And the moment that he told me, so I've never had this in my life. Like, I believe in healing wholeheartedly. I pray for healing. But the moment that he told me, his wife said that he has cancer, I heard, like Alex said, like the Lord spoke to me. But it was like inside, I heard this like voice.
Intuition?
Yeah, it wasn't like a solid word, but it was just like, he doesn't have cancer. And I was like, what does that mean? And then I'm kind of like, as he's like telling me, and they're very upset, and like God said, like, I'm going to heal him, pray for him. And I was like, whoa, okay.
Weird.
Weird. I'm on the job site, he's my framer. But anyway, so I didn't follow through. I chickened out, of course. And
you
I was
didn't
like,
pray for him?
No, I was like, yeah, let me pray for you. Yeah, I was just like, what? I'll pray for you. Like, God bless you. But it wasn't like praying for his healing from cancer. Like, that's a bold prayer, And so I chickened out, of course.
We'll pray for boldness later.
Yeah. Well, second time he shows up, he's like really bummed out too. And he's like working, and he's sitting there. I came up, like I hugged him. I'm like, man, you're going to be okay. You'll be fine. Shortly, like prior to that, like my aunt died from cancer, and I just kind of shared with them. And I was like, look, like God heals, but sometimes like he doesn't. But like the way that my aunt went, it was a testimony. Her neighbors came to the Lord because she was faithful to God. And so I was like kind of buttering him up from this perspective, like, let this cancer shape you. But inside, it's like, pray for him. I'm going to heal him. Healing. But again, that's never happened so boldly. And it's cancer. Like, so I'm like, and third day, whatever, he comes to work, and I'm like, okay, you know what? So his wife comes, and I'm like, hey, look, since the time you told me you have cancer, like inside, I knew God would heal you, but I've been scared. And I'm like, I'm not going to be scared, because I'm like, look, this is what we're going to do. We'll pray for you. And if God heals you, that's amazing. God healed you from cancer. It's a testimony. If he doesn't heal you, at least we tried, right? And he was like, yeah, sure. So he was like, well, let's go to your pastor, okay, let's go. I'm like, no, like we're going to pray here. Oh, right here. Okay. So like takes off his hat. And I was just like, okay, I don't know how to like properly pray, for that. Like I'm speaking like very properly, just like the Bible says. I laid my hand on his back like that, and his lungs. And I was like, Lord, your word says, lay hands on the sick and they shall recover. You told me you're going to heal him. So by your word, may he receive healing. Amen. And that was it. I didn't feel no like supernatural things. There was no tears. There wasn't no emotions. And it puts his hat on. Okay, thank you. As it keeps going.
And then when does he come back to you?
Like a few days later, they roll up to the jobs. So I pull up to check up on the job site, and he's there, and he's like, wait, my wife's gonna come. And so his wife comes, and she's like, Mr. Paul, like, I have to share a story. Like, God healed David from cancer. And I was like, are you serious? She's like, yeah, look. And so she brings the scans. So they scanned his lungs twice prior, and you could see how a big chunk of them were white. It was already like stage 3 or something. And then she brings the scans like the day pretty much after the prayer, completely clear, his lungs. And so I'm standing there shaking, and I got goosebumps right now too. And I'm like, did God really heal this person from cancer? He did. And so that gave me a boldness after that. I'm like, why? Like, if God gives you a word.
And you
like,
were chicken for 3 days.
Yeah, I was. And he was struggling with it. I'm like, so from here on out, I'm just like, if God gives you a word, like, pray. It's not my responsibility to heal. It's not my responsibility to whatever. But through me being open about my faith in Christ at the job site, it opened the door for him to be vulnerable. And then through that, I was able to, pray for him, and God was able to work.
And you started seeing that God actually moves.
Oh yeah. Then I had like way more testimonies. After that, I was like sharing with people left and right. And it's been amazing to see how when you are open about your faith and you use your business and the opportunity, like, hey, I'm in these people's home, like, and they're asking me questions. So like, where are you from? What do you do? What's up? And like we go to Brazil a lot, and it's actually like lately people ask me, so what do you do in Brazil? I'm like, we preach the gospel, Yesterday,
very simple.
Very simple. Yesterday, I met a new client. She's like, oh, we heard you're the guy with all the answers. I'm like, for eternal life? Heck yeah. She's like, no, for work. I'm like, we could talk about work, and then we could get to eternal life. So it's really cool how, like, before I was ashamed. It was like weird. I'm a really bold guy. I was like ashamed of my faith. I didn't want to talk about it. Like, don't mix business with personal, or separation of church and state. I don't know. Like, that's all baloney.
Hey,
like,
my question really quick. Sorry. Let's get back on track really quick.
Yeah.
You don't have to be. I had a pastor come to me. I was selling him a car a few days ago. I sell cars for a living. And he asked me, he's like, David, he was a pastor. And I shared it to him a little bit what happened in Brazil and how we go to Brazil and Uruguay. He's like, David, he's like, you know what? My whole life I've been a minister. He's like, I have never seen God move. I've never seen God in action. He's like, I desire to see God move. I desire to see miracles. Alex, my question to you, God has led you up in ministry and missions. How do you keep a balance between that? And how do you see God move in your business, in ministry? Do you believe that those things should be separated, or is that like a combination of life? Does that make sense? Is that something we do?
And don't forget about family.
And family. Families, yeah. Families, I would say, even more important.
Number one.
Family's number one. God, family, I asked this pastor once, hey, what do you think is important? Ministry, business, family, God. He explained like this. He's like, there's not a tier of what's important. He's like, you have the circle over here. God is in the center, and you have your family. You have ministry, you have this, you have this, you have this, everything. And everything co-aligns and it comes together. He's like, when you give too much emphasis on business, your family suffers. When you give too much, all your efforts on family, you got no bills, you got no money to pay your bills, So it's like we as men, he's like, we find that perfect unity, and we stir that pot, But back to your question, how do you balance ministry and business together? How has God used that in your life?
Well, I think the biggest thing is God gave me partners that are same mindset.
Okay.
So we're inciting with me and Dimitri. When he told me, he's like, if it has to come to ministry, he's like, fully go ahead, I bless you. You go do it. He was never.
So your partner was on board.
Yeah, on board. And he was always like, go ahead and do it when it comes to God, when it comes to ministry. So I think the biggest thing for ministry and business is you have to set time. You have to put schedule. This like we go to Brazil, we go missions a lot. So we put a schedule ahead that these 2 weeks I'm going to be off. So I prepare in the business whatever needs to be done to be ready before I go, to make sure everything's set before I leave, that people are not going to be struggling in the business. So I think you just have to manage everything. It's possible. I know a lot of ministries that say if you want to be in the ministry, you can't be in the business because it's going to take your time away. So a lot of people have that understanding that you can do business and ministry together. But I think it's really easy because, the Bible says, seek the kingdom of God and everything else will come along. Mm-hmm. So I think this is something that I live by, that when I seek the kingdom of God, God will give me wisdom how to balance business and ministry together. Because it's not just we go overseas, we do a lot of ministry here locally too. Mm-hmm. So, but I think when God gives you people that have same vision, same mindset, it's so much easier to run a business and to do ministry together.
Modern day, one thing I struggled when I was younger, I thought I had to be in full-time ministry, to be a minister. And God kind of pushed business onto me. I never wanted to do business. I hated anything to do with business because I used to run my dad's books for free for like 5 years or 6 years. And I'm like, I do not like business. I just want to serve the Lord. I want to serve the Lord. And then I got like business pushed onto me, and I was doing full-time ministry and business at the same time. And I think one aspect that I want to point out to people that are listening is modern day, yes, you can be a full-time minister, but would you agree, like in our case, we are a full-time ministry, we're a full-time business, we're a full-time family. Our ministry doesn't pay. Is anybody here a full-time minister? Like where your ministry pays for it? But our business pays for our ministry, right? Everything we do is a surplus and it funds. You have churches overseas that you're funding, right? Yeah. You have two churches.
That we do, Brazil and Uruguay.
Yeah. And that's all coming out of the businesses.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So I think business is a tool to reach more people. Mm-hmm. So if you look at it that way, every money or finances that you make, the way you structure your business, you'll be able to reach a lot of more people. Mm-hmm. How do we want to say that money pays for everything?
Yeah.
Travel, like I said, like we just got back from Brazil. It was almost $30,000.
$30,000. Yeah, so, I counted my bill. It was pretty expensive.
Well, that was just the crusade.
Yeah,
and
that's just
everyone's
crusade.
Personal.
Yeah, no, everyone's personal. Yeah, let's not talk about.
So that's why God is raising up business people that have that heart for reaching out people.
Because we were sorry for the listeners, but we were actually counting how much salvation cost us. We had, remember that? We had 100.
Being the businessman,
like 104 people saved. We counted the money. It cost us about
$285 a person.
$285 of salvation.
That's the ROI.
Return on investment.
Yeah.
It was definitely worth it, right?
That's what happens when you have a business.
Well, is that weird? When you think about ROI and all that, you're like return on investment. You're like, well, if we're investing this much into missions, how much is it coming back? But I think an important thing I wanted to emphasize, business and ministry, the really key thing is partnership, like you said, and delegation. So if you look at Jesus, right, he modeled the perfect ministry. He got 12 disciples. He delegated certain tasks to people, even though they were imperfect. And me and you, David, we talked a lot how this past year we've learned to give up the reins a little bit. Like we can tend to be control freaks and like nobody can run the business as good as me. Well, I gave up a lot of control. God sent me an amazing person into my life and he's like running a lot of the stuff. It costs you money. And at first you're like, am I willing to spend this much money just to have somebody run my business? Nobody will run it as good as me. But when you find people like you got Dimitri and Serge, you got a great guy that you love. I have a great guy. And actually now, yes, we're paying more money, but these guys are actually gaining more money because they're fully invested into making the business running and going. And now we can set that time that we used to be doing whatever you were doing or I was doing. And we can actually focus that time on ministry. Like I was gone for 2 weeks in Brazil and, everything was going smoothly because I have a great person in my business.
It felt so good, didn't it?
Yeah. Before it was like standstill, like you had 3 guys, you, Serge, and Alina in Brazil, but Dimitri was here and he was pretty much running the whole thing. And so it's like the partnership, the people that we partner with in life, we can go further with them. Mm-hmm. If we stop being so prideful that, I got to do it all myself, you don't have to. If you want to go far in life, right? What's that term?
If you want to go, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far,
Go with someone else.
team up with somebody else.
And that's been the big theme.
Can I want to come to a close very soon, and I want to kind of finish with this in Genesis 1:27. I've heard there's this pastor in Georgia, and he was very big in Chick-fil-A. He worked under Chick-fil-A, and he helped with the franchises. And then he moved to a church, and that church kind of started opening up different sections. And he didn't come as a pastor. They're like, hey, we heard you work in franchise business. Come help us open up multi-campuses, you know. And he said this one thing that really struck out to me. He said, before the Great Commission, you know, the Great Commission to save the lost,
Go into all the world and preach the gospel.
God sent us the commission. You know, before the Great Commission, there was the commission where in Genesis 1:27, God created man, and then he said, fill the earth and subdue it. You know, first thing he said is fill the earth, work the earth. You know, he didn't say go save the lost, but he said for us men is go work. That is our first thing. And one thing I want to say to the listeners is we have a lot of missionaries not missionaries. We have a lot of people who are striving to be in ministry, and they think they need to be in paid time ministry. Yes, there's doors for that, you know, and I believe God will lead you to that, but don't be lazy. Mm-hmm. The first thing God called you to do. I remember one of our pastors, when I met him first, he told us this. He's like, pastors these days, they're lazy. They just want to make a paycheck, you know, and that's it. But they don't want to physically work, you know.
Yeah.
And if you guys can just maybe share 30 seconds of what you think about this right here. The Great Commission versus the Commission.
Well, I think we as a man, we have to work. I think people that, try to be in the ministry and make money off the ministry or get paid by the ministry. Yes, it's good. There's full-time pastors. There's full-time. I met people that actually full-time and they do work and they need that paycheck from the ministry. But there's people that they're lazy. They don't want to work, but they want to get paid by the ministry. But God gave us hands and feet. And I know he gave us wisdom how to provide for our families, provide for everything that we have around us. It's just we have to have our focus not on business, but focus on God.
Yeah.
And this is where God is going to be blessing us. Like in my life, I see so many blessings that when my focus is on God, everything just comes along. Things just align, and you look at it back later, a year later, and you're like, that was God. So I would encourage, even for me, because I do a lot of ministry, and it gives me actually rejoice that I achieved something. Because me as a man, I can provide for the ministry, I can provide for my family, and I have a business that is running. So to be an example for other people, because I truly think when we come into and preach the gospel to people, people look at us and they look at our lifestyle. And we can be an example for other people to encourage them to establish businesses.
And we can be an example also of how we run our businesses too, right?
100%, because there's a lot of people that rip everybody off. They call themselves Christians, but they rip everybody off. They don't pay or other things that they do, and they're like, oh, I'm Christian. But how can you be a Christian and be an example for people when you rip people off?
Yeah.
So I think that's a big thing. So that's what, for me personally, as a businessman, is business is a ministry for me. Because I believe that I can reach more people daily and be an example. Even by providing a house, I call it, you bless a person with a house. Because you put a good quality home. You invest your time, you know that you're doing it not just for you, but you're doing it for God. And you're providing a house. And then people that are working for us, they're praying, they're asking God, give us a job.
You're providing labor for people.
So now,
a livelihood.
So now we as business people, we are able to provide them a job. That somebody that was praying and saying, God, I need a job to provide for my family. And God has given us the opportunity to provide that job for them.
Yeah.
So now it's like it becomes
like a repeating cycle.
Yeah, repeating cycle. And now people are praying for you, blessing your business.
You're providing a home, you're providing somebody a job opportunity, and you're taking that finances and you're investing that into the kingdom of God overseas, whether it's in a local church, wherever you're doing.
Yeah. So that's...
Anything you want to add, Paul?
Well, I think that, there's that saying, give a man a fish, he'll ask for it tomorrow. Teach a man to fish,
Yeah.
he'll take care of himself. What I've learned is that oftentimes we enable people when we go and we just give them handouts or like, oh, I'm hungry, give me something to eat or something like that. And you go, you give money and their life will never change. But if you teach people a skill, so for me, I'm a contractor, so is Alex, so are you. And when people come to us, you have like young people come, or we recently had a wave of refugees coming from Ukraine and stuff. And they're like, there's different people that come, but there's those that say, look, I want to learn how to do this. I'm like, okay, I will teach you. So what I like to do is I'll buy you the tools. I'll provide you with the truck. All I want from you is an open mind to learn, and I'll teach you. My guys will teach you how to do it. And now I have one guy who's been with me 3 years since I came here. I mean, I started over here, so these are relatively fresh numbers, not like 20 years in the business. But I have 3 guys in my company that have been with me practically since I moved here, and most of them started with nothing. And now, they got tools, they got trucks, and they got valuable skills. And most of my guys, I tell them, go open an LLC. 2 of my guys, we opened an LLC for them this year, and I'm telling them, go out on your own, because you're going to hit a cap. Mm-hmm. You're not going to want to work for me hourly. You're going to hit a certain point. You're going to make more money, and that's fine. I want you to succeed and do better. There'll always be people that are coming to learn, but we're teaching you a valuable life skill. And now with that life skill, not only do you feed your family, provide, but just like I did, I came in doing siding and roofing with my uncle at 16, and
Tide commercial. Hey, go back to the Tide commercial.
Hair before wash.
That's actually, it was going good for a long time. So
Yeah.
where can he start?
Hold on,
I'll wrap
you
it
said-
up.
Which your dad at which your uncle at 16?
hold on, you were helping people.
Yeah,
Go back to you were helping people find a job opportunity and finish up where they're. Just finish up right there.
Like by hiring people
Yeah.
and teaching them from scratch.
Yeah,
and
just
teaching them a valuable skill. And just like when I came into construction when I was like 16 years old in summertime, doing siding, roofing, windows, and then you do a little bit of that, flooring, tile, kitchens, and then next thing you know, you become a builder. So a big thing I tell people is like, you don't just like, people are like, oh, I want to, get in and build houses. Great. Like my dream was to build homes and not like subdivisions and that. Like I want to build like beautiful, huge, like unique homes, like in very prestigious areas, something like unique. I don't want to crank out 100 homes. I want to do like one beautiful home that's a statement. That's personally, what I always dreamed of doing. So when I got into construction, opened my business, my brother and I always said, we're going to get into building. So we got in 2016, plus I was doing construction working for somebody like 5 years prior to that. So you could say there was like 8 years of me learning things before I went and built my first house. Mm-hmm. So there's this like valuable lesson of like taking the steps, taking the time, learning the industry step by step until you're at the point where you can comfortably go in and now you're, living out your dream, you could say. But even then, where do you stop? We're only 30. We're just starting.
We're just starting. We're only in our 30s.